And so they saw the cut where the other person came in and fought Michael, right? Whatever showdown that was. I've never seen the original cut. I don't know like how that fight goes down. But again, in that audience, in that test audience, when they filled out that survey, and it's like, what did you like? What didn't you like it? They overwhelmingly, from that audience of 90 people, overwhelmingly that audience said, I don't like that Busta Rhymes died. And so they went back and reshot it and released the movie with Busta Rhymes living and being the person who fights Michael at the end of the movie. But again, because that's not how the original movie was set up, the cut, like the theatrical cut, when the person opens the door, now it's just a silhouette, right? So you don't see the person, like you don't see the person's face when they open the door. But you can clearly tell that that silhouette is not the silhouette of Busta Rhymes. But the test audience is still a small number to judge out of millions who will watch it. So is it an effective way of knowing the audience? I don't think it is. And that's what I was getting at. So that's why I mentioned that director. And again, I can't remember who the director was, but the director was talking about any time that he's done a test audience and listened to the test audience, it was the wrong decision. Like their feedback was wrong. He shouldn't have listened to them. He made the movie the way he made it because that's the story he wanted to tell. And when he allowed the test audience to kind of dictate how the movie should be, when he did those cuts on those select movies like he did them, when they got released, they would always get like critically bombed and attacked. And so what should be the right approach? I don't know if there is a right approach. I think that when you're talking about art, I think you should just tell your story. I think the moment that you start worrying about what other people are going to think is the moment that you lose control of the story you wanted to tell. You know, but like, there's no guarantee that a test audience is gonna make your movie better. But there's also no guarantee that, like, maybe your movie would have done better with a test audience. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's any, like, way to know one way or the other. My opinion is you should just not do the test audience. You know, just tell the story you wanted to tell. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If I'm in business and I have to care about audience reaction, I have no choice. But see, that's the problem, right? Like, this is the problem that we have with Hollywood, is that Hollywood wants to make money. Obviously, especially when you're spending millions of dollars to make a movie. Hollywood wants to make money, but the problem is, like, the people running Hollywood, like the executives at any studio, like, their goal is to make money. They know nothing about entertainment. They know nothing about filmmaking. They just know how to make money. So you got these guys that are in control of your budget, but they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like, they just think that there's a formula to make money off of movies. This is why, like, you know, I've had this discussion with some friends of mine in the past that aren't in the industry, where they say, like, I think Hollywood's running out of ideas, and that's why you always see, like, recycled ideas, right? Like, it's always superhero movies, or it's always, like, the same idea over and over. It's always remakes. And therefore, Hollywood has no ideas. And it's like, that's just a bad take, because, you know, screenwriters are just authors themselves, right? So it's like, there's always a new book coming out, right? But books are a lot cheaper to make than movies to be made. And it's easy to, like, if I'm an author and I come up with a story and I find a publisher that's willing to publish my book, it's easy for them to be like, okay, you know what, we're just going to publish 1,000 of these, and if they don't sell, we're only out, $10,000. But if they print 1,000 and they do well, then they can run another print, and they can just print more and more, and they can just keep printing the demand, right? Like, the initial upfront cost for, like, a book to be published is nothing for a publisher. And so it's easy to see, like, authors get their books, their stories told. And I say easy, obviously, like, if you're an author trying to get your book published, it's obviously not that easy. But it's easier to convince a publishing house to publish your book, because it's not that expensive overall to publish a book, right? To take a chance on an unknown author. When you're talking about movies, you're talking about things that cost millions of dollars to make, and it's not. So it's a lot harder to be like, hey, Eric, who you've never heard of, wants to make this movie, but he needs $5 million to make it. Making $5 million back is a lot harder than making $10,000 back on a 1,000 issue run of a book. I'm just throwing out easy numbers, obviously. And so the studios are like, oh, that worries us. $5 million, we don't want to lose that. How about we remake Spider-Man instead? Or why don't we remake Back to the Future? Or why don't we do another Jurassic Park movie? Or, you know what I mean? Like, so this is why you see, like, recycled ideas come through Hollywood, and it's not because there's no ideas out there, right? Like, I know a handful of screenwriters right now that probably have 10 scripts each ready to go, but nobody wants to take a chance on them because they're expensive to make, right? Even from an independent level, it's a lot of money to make. It's a lot of money to the first Terrifier was only made with $35,000, but $35,000 is still a lot of money. Like, it's not like, not everybody has $35,000 laying around in their bank account. And convincing Argoblarg to give me $35,000, he refuses to do so. I know, I've asked, I've tried. He won't give me his money. He won't give me his $35,000. But he is kind and he gives me free, he gives me gift subs. And I appreciate them, but he's not giving me $35,000 to make a movie. So, you think I have $35K? I know you do. That's why, but you refuse to give it to me. But that's my point, right? It's hard to get, like, again, Argo doesn't have $35,000. I mean, I assume he doesn't just have $35,000 laying around. But, like, so even, like, making an independent movie is not easy. Like, if I need $35,000 to make a movie, it's not a lot of money, but it is. Right? And so, like, I need a studio. But the studio doesn't want to invest $35,000 into a movie. They want to make money. Right? Like, even though, like, $35,000 might net them $100,000, right? When you're talking about multi-billion-dollar media corporations, $100,000, they make that in interest every minute off of what's in their bank account. It's a lot of... It is a lot of money, but it's not. Oh my goodness!
Argleblara gifted Treehouse Mouse a subscription. Argleblara gifted a tier 1 sub to Treehouse Mouse. They have given 6 gift subs in the channel.
Argle, thank you for the gift sub. You didn't have to do that. Now you're only $34,994 to go. What kind of movie can you make with this? I don't know. I could make something in my house, but $3 is going to have to pay for, like, a prop. Maybe a can of tuna or something, and I don't eat tuna. So I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out. So basically, large studios play it safe with a big amount. Yes, and that's also the problem, because it's like, so like right now, like with the big studios are doing is they're like, well, we need to spend $200 million. Like, we're only going to spend $200 million on movies, right? This is why you're seeing, like, all of these Marvel movies being made and all these you know, all these superhero movies, Jurassic World, and because they all have this idea, like, and again, this isn't the creatives. This is where it becomes problematic with like bankers now running studios. Is that they're looking at is like return on investment. Well, yeah, if I spend $200 million making a movie, and I spend another $150 million on marketing, that's a $350 million investment. But based on historic box offices, I could make anywhere from $600 million to $1 billion on my $350 million investment. So I can, our calculations, which don't always work, our calculations are that we'll make at least $600 million. So we'll make a $150 million profit on a $350 million, right? So they're looking at it as like, well, we can make basically a 33%, you know, a 33% profit, but they don't look at it as like, well, if you give me $35,000, I can get you $100,000 back. I'm now tripling your money, right? So for $35,000, I can get you $100,000 back. I'm tripling your money, but you would rather get a 30% return on a $300 million versus a 300% return on a $30,000. But the problem with that is like when a movie flops, they're now out $400 million. Whereas if you gave me $35,000 to make a movie and it flops, you're only out $35,000. But they don't look at it that way. Like we've gotten to this point in Hollywood, it's like every movie has to be $200 million. And so, again, if I'm a screenwriter and I go to a studio and I say, look, here's my script. I need $5 million to make this movie. The studio's not going to take me up on this. You know what I mean? Like, this is why, like, Blumhouse, like, if you look at Blumhouse is smart. Like, when Blumhouse started, and this is, the Blumhouse model is essentially make a movie for as cheap as possible, because we know we know that there's a minimal amount of money that you could spend that you will definitely get that money back. So it's not $35,000. So let's say that minimum amount of money is $400,000. If you spend $400,000, you are guaranteed that enough audience members will come out and see your movie that you will get that $400,000 back. And I'm just using that number. I don't know what that number is, but there is definitely a threshold where if you spend X amount of money, you are definitely guaranteed X amount back. And this is like what Blumhouse has run on. This is why Blumhouse has become such a powerhouse when it comes to low budget independent horror movies. I mean, they're not really independent now because they're working with Universal and stuff, but like they just crossed $1 billion when they were making movies for nothing. Look at what was the movie that Unfriended, was that what it was called? Let's take a look here. They did a movie, I think it was called Unfriended. IMDb Pro. Unfriended. Unfriended. $1 million budget. Opening weekend made $16 million. The movie's not good, guys. And I don't think it cost them that. Like, I don't think $1 million. I don't think that number's right. I think it was like $400,000. There's no reason that movie cost $1 million to make. But like, look at like Paranormal Activity. I liked Unfriended. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm bashing the movie. Look at like Paranormal Activity, right? They shot Paranormal Activity with $12,000. And that movie alone went off to make like $68 million on a $12,000 budget. They self-financed that. Same with Blair Witch. Right? Blair Witch was $40,000 to make. They did that independently. I lived in Salt Lake. Like Sundance was in my backyard. The Sundance Film Festival was in my backyard. And I remember, like, in 1999, when Blair Witch Project was premiering at Sundance, the marketing around that, like, there was missing flyer posters everywhere about Heather, Mike, and Josh up in Park City and in downtown Salt Lake because they're promoting the film, and nobody knew if it was real or not at that time. And again, they went up to also make like 50 million or 60 million in the box office when the movie came out. But again, like, that movie wasn't made by a studio. It was at Sundance and it got bought. You know what I mean? Like, it got bought for like $3 million or something like that. Like, they got... I know there's a thing that just came out because like Heather Michael, like nobody on that movie got paid like residuals or anything. And I know that there was a recent announcement where Artisan agreed to give Mike, Heather, and Josh like back-end points finally, 25 years later on it. That movie made tons of money and the actor saw nothing. I think it was because of but again, like going back to like Terrifier 3 or like even Terrifier 3, right? Like Terrifier 3 is all self-financed. Like they had keep in mind Terrifier and Terrifier 2 have been around, right? Art the Clown has been in pop culture for a few years now. Like Art the Clown is like a new horror icon. Like there's no denying that Art the Clown is not part of like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. Like he's up there. Like Art the Clown is not going away. He's not like a one-trick pony, right? And when they went to go get financing for Terrifier 3, because the first one, Damien, like I said, Damien shot the first one on 35 grand, and he got that from, like, he convinced somebody, like his boss had the money, and so I think he convinced his boss to give him the money or something like that. The second one was completely crowdfunded. They went to Kickstarter, raised, I think, like 200 grand, because all of the fans came from Terrifier 1, and they wanted to see a sequel, so they completely financed Terrifier 2 off of Kickstarter or GoFundMe, one of those sites. So it was already established. And then when Terrifier 3, when they were going in to go do Terrifier 3, they went to investors and tried to get $2 million from the investors. And the investors or the studios or whoever they were talking to, I was talking to Michael about this earlier this year, and he was telling me this story. But the investors were like, yeah, we'll finance the movie, but we want you to do these changes. We want you to do this, and these are our demands, essentially. And the main producer, his name is JP, I believe. He's the guy who financed the first one. He's the one who gave up the $35,000 on the first one. No, PJ, Phil. His name's Phil. But Phil's like, you know what? I'm just going to finance this myself. And he's just like, we don't need your money. I have got the money. I'll just finance it myself. Or I'll come up with the money or something like that. And they're like, oh, you're going to go finance $2 million on your own? And he's like, yeah, fuck you guys. Completely took the investors out of it, which they never had the investors in the first two movies. They wanted a bigger budget, so they went to investors, and investors wanted stuff that they weren't willing to give up. And keep in mind, at this point, it's already been established. So it's like, you're not really in the position to start telling like Damien and Michael and them what you want out of this character when it's like already become like it's already being sold in Spirit Halloween, and there's already merchandising all over the place. Like the IP alone is worth more than the $2 million that you were trying to raise. But then they just took the studio out, and look, they just ended their theatrical run with like $89 million or something. Nobody would give Damien $35,000 to do the first one. Dumb move. I don't know Damien that well. I've met Damien, but I know Michael. I'll tell you this: if Michael had come to me with that script, in 2016 and said, "Hey, we're trying to get $35,000." I would have been like, "I'll find you that money. $35,000. Like, I'll find you that money." But like, think about like all of the people that Damien had to have approached, when he was trying to get the first one made, that all told him no, that are all kicking themselves. You know what I mean? Like, you guys all missed out on what is easily like the IP right now when it comes to horror. But again, nobody wants to invest money unless it's like they all have this idea that like you have to spend a lot of money to make money, and it's like you don't. Like, how many times are we going to see independent horror movies get made for pennies on the dollar and just like smash box office? $12,000 for Paranormal Activity. For $68 million on that movie, plus all of the spin-offs that came after the fact, and all the sequels, and like, I think big studios with large budget can afford to spare a few, but they won't. That's the problem. It shouldn't be about money always. Right, but that's the problem, is that, like, so here's the problem, like, the people who run the studios literally come from, like, Goldman Sachs and Citibank. They're all like previous CEOs at banks and hedge funds. Like, so they literally come from a world where all they do is make money. And that's the problem, is they don't have any way to think outside that box. They see everything as like, how can I make more money? When you go to shareholders, right? Like, so you have shareholders. Like, if I go to a shareholder, I'm like, hey guys, I made you, I invested $35,000 and made us $100,000. The shareholders aren't going to care because you're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies. So I understand why they don't want to do it, but at the same time, it's like you're missing out on. Like, imagine if Warner Brothers was the one to have given Damien the $35,000 to make Terrifier. Terrifier beat out Joker 2. Right? Terrifier has no big names in it. And beat out Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix in the December box office. But they were so sure that making a musical out of the Joker was going to make them a shit ton of money, and it bombed. They spent like $200 million? What did they spend? Let's take a look. What did they spend on that? Joker 2. Folie Right. So according to IMDb, they spent $190 million to film that movie. Their gross worldwide was $206 million. They probably lost about $200 million on that movie. Do you think financiers gave them the idea on Joker 2? No, I mean, as far as like telling Todd Phillips what to do. No, that's what Todd Phillips wanted to do. I just don't know why they greenlit, like. Because like, so here's the thing, like when you hear about like budgets. So general rule of thumb, the marketing budget is as much as the filming budget. So that's why I'm saying they likely lost about $200 million. So they spent $190 million budget to make the movie. they probably spent about 150 to another $200 million in marketing. So that's why I'm like, no, they lost money on that. So they spent 190 million for production costs, and they only netted 200 million. That excludes the marketing, and like I said, marketing is generally about the same amount as your production budget. Going back to Terrifier 3, they spent $2 million in production, and then their distributor spent $500,000 on marketing. So they spent $2.5 million. So they didn't even spend $2 million on marketing, which even if they did, it would have been justified. So they didn't even spend like the normal like general amount on marketing. They literally spent a quarter of what their marketing budget usually is, predicted to be, and they made out like bandits. Imagine how many great horror movies could have been. None. Well, this is what I'll say. There's only one movie I think that you could make for $200 million on a horror movie, and that's In the Mouth of Madness, which is a H.P. Lovecraft. It's a movie that Guillermo del Toro has been trying to make for like 20 years. It's an H.P. Lovecraft story, but there's like no way realistically to make that movie without a huge budget behind it, and there's no way in hell that movie would make its money back. Like, it's like one of those movies, it's like you need the giant budget to make the movie, but you're never gonna make the movie. Yeah, you're talking about the John Carpenter one? Yeah, Guillermo del Toro wants to make it. I think that's the one he wants to make. He wants to make one of those H.P. Lovecraft stories into a reality, but no way would he make that money. But think about like, so for that one movie, for that one $200 million budget, right? But like, if you broke that down, which is what I think you are saying, for $200 million, if you broke that down into, for $200 million, if you broke that down into $2 million budgets, you could make 100 low-budget horror movies. And I guarantee you, with that wide of a net, I guarantee you, if you threw out $2 million to 100 filmmakers, to 100 horror filmmakers, I guarantee you that you would get enough successes out of that to quadruple your money. I would put money on that bet. Like, yeah, you're going to get a couple that flop. For sure, you're going to get, and a lot of them are going to flop. But I guarantee you. But all they have to do, like, again, all they have to do is make $5 million, right? Like, each movie just has to make $5 million to not be a loss. I mean, more than $4 million. Let's just say $5 million, because we're making numbers easy. I would almost guarantee you that if you gave $2 million to 100 filmmakers, I would almost guarantee that every single one of those films would give you a $5 million return. Like, I would be pretty confident in even that bet, right? Like, you might, again, you'd probably get a few that don't. But, like, making $5 million on a movie, like, it's not hard unless, like, again, going to, like, what Argo Blarg showed in the Discord a while ago, but that was intentionally sabotaged. You know, like, when you have movies that are only in, like, 2 theaters, like, they're being intentionally sabotaged. Like, they're not being serious on trying to get their money back. They're literally just trying to create a loss for the studio. But all of those movies, if you were a millionaire, would you invest in small horror films rather than going big? Yeah. I know, again, like, I know a lot of, because I'm in the horror community, like, I know a lot of horror directors and screenwriters that have scripts ready to go. And again, like, it's... I understand why Warner Brothers doesn't want to invest in $100,000 movies to get $200,000 back, because they're dealing with billions of dollars. But, like, you're going to give me $100,000, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get $200,000 back. Like, if I was a millionaire, why wouldn't I take that bet? Worst case scenario, I'm at $100,000. You know, like, and as $100,000's a lot of money, except for when you're a millionaire, it's not. You know, if somebody picks it up, Squid Game, I think he was shopping around for like 10 years. It wasn't 2, it was a lot longer than that. But he got screwed on that too. He got like no money for the first season. Like, I'm sure he got paid well for the second, but like, yeah, he got paid like he was basically like screwed on yeah, let's take a look here. Squid Game creator. Yeah, he was paid, here you go, Rolling Stone. They paid him up front, but they gave him no back-end points. Why did he get no money for the first season? Because that's how Hollywood works. They look for ways to... Oh, that's all... Yeah, let's see if we can get a different one. How about this one? That one's all paywalled. If that's paywalled for you, try this one. Yeah, even though the first series was such a huge global success, honestly, I didn't make much. So during the second series, yeah, he lost 8 or 9 of his teeth from stress. And again, they didn't pay any back-end points. So I'm sure when he did season 2, he probably negotiated like some hefty payouts. But you know, it's just how Hollywood is. They just screw you. You know, David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, back in like 2008. You know, he's obviously passed since then. But back in 2008, he did an interview where he's like, I still haven't got any back-end payments for Return of the Jedi. Because Hollywood keeps saying that they lost money on Return of the Jedi. They lost money. He deserves the money he's asking Squid Game. Yeah, I agree. And hopefully when he renegotiated, he got a huge bump in pay. And he better have gotten... I'm sure he got like back-end points. Like, I'm sure at this point he's well off. But like... But yeah, for season 1, like that, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing too. When you're a nobody, and you're trying to sell your story. My friend, he created the Final Destination. Jeffrey, he's a good friend of mine. Now he gets paid every time they make a new, but he's not rich. You know what I mean? Like, he gets a payout every single time they make a new movie because he gets created by credit, but like, he doesn't get hired on to do the scripts. Like that, they tell him what's going on, but I don't think he has to sign off. Like, I don't think he gets to sign off on. I think it's just like a courtesy, like, hey, this is what we're doing with Final Destination 6. He's like, okay. You know, but like they're not inviting him into rooms to be like, well, what other ideas do you have? Right? Like, what other ideas do you have? Like, he's not getting invited. Like, You know, New Line isn't inviting him, saying, "Hey, we love that you're making us over $1 billion in this franchise you created." What are they like? They're not giving him those meetings. Like, it's just like, "Hey, we're making a new movie. Here's a new check." No, yeah, I mean, you would think he would be super. He's not. You know, he's not. Anyway, it's dark. God, I need to get this ring. I need to get a new ring light. But anyway, guys, thanks again for hanging out. Argyle, thanks for that gift sub. That was nice of you. And I'll be back. Today's Thursday, right? I'll be back on Sunday for more of this game. Thanks, Eric, for great conversation. Hey, thank you for engaging the conversation. But yeah, I'll be back Sunday. So you guys have a good weekend. Thanks again for hanging out. Argyle, thanks again for that gift sub. And Gwen, I don't know if Gwen's still here. Gwen, thanks for hanging out earlier if you're still here. And Chad, I don't know if Chad's here anymore either. But Chad, thanks for hanging out earlier. Oh, Amber's here. Amber, thanks for lurking. But yeah, guys, I'll be back Sunday, so have a good weekend. And I will see you guys then.